Hi, Kane. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So, how are you finding your 2020 thus far?
I mean, it's just been weird, right? Like,
Bonkers.
yeah, I've said it a lot, and I feel really like guilty kind of saying it, but I've quite liked it. And I know that's like really controversial because, like, it's tragic things are happening. People are losing their businesses, losing their jobs, people are dying. But for me personally, like, it's been like a real moment of like growth. Like
Mm,
I've really got to press pause and like analyze what I was
everything.
doing, what my goals are, what am I investing time and energy into that I guess doesn't serve me much purpose.
Yeah.
Like, what am I benefiting from the things I'm investing my time in? And having all that I feel like stripped away from me made me realize what I missed and what I didn't miss. So it's just been a really good like I guess reset, like a
Yeah.
good like re-evaluation of okay, when the world goes back to normal, in air quotes, like what do I want to put all my time and effort into? What do I want my purpose to be? What do I want to be? I have this new thing which is kind of in my head where it's like, okay, in 20 years time, what do I want to be known as? How do I want to be remembered? Do I
Your
want
legacy.
hundreds of thousands of people talking about me, or do you just want 20 people saying really nice things about you? Like what's the goal? So for me, it's been great in terms of that, where I've got to like, okay, what's the goal? But the I very much miss, wow, that wasn't English, was it? I very much miss my social life.
Right.
Like, I'm a social bunny. I miss my friends. I
Yeah,
miss my
me too.
family.
The
Like,
connection.
I miss going to see a show. Like, I miss working. I miss performing, obviously, but I feel like that's a granted. Like, if you're a performer, like I can't imagine many people say that, oh, I've really enjoyed not performing. I'm sure no one's saying that. But like the things that you really take for granted, just like being able to pop out and see my best friend, like things like that, I've really missed.
It definitely puts things into a bigger perspective, doesn't it? And makes you realize when you say about growth, I completely connect with that. I feel like this year, personally and professionally, it's been all about that and transforming. And
Mm.
then when you say it's made you think about your goals, so I mean, we'll touch on it a bit later, but what is your goal? Like, or goals? You don't just have to have one, but what is it for you?
I feel like over the past few years, I've been spreading myself really thin. Like, I've wanted to have a podcast. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to perform. I've wanted to be a good fiance. I wanted to get a house. I wanted to save money. Like, there's all these things that I've been trying to do. And then it's been amazing and I love it. And then not being able to do all of these things, it's made me go, okay, there are things that aren't as important to me now, maybe so much. Like, if I really want to focus on something, how am I going to do it? And I think back to the things that I've achieved, and when I've really wanted to achieve them, I've always been very like blinkered. You know what
Mm,
I mean? Like, that's the goal. Like, nothing will distract me from what I'm trying to achieve. And then it's like, okay, so I've been thinking about the future. As in, I can't dance forever. I just turned 30. And I know to some people they'll be like, that's not old at all. But to some people you'll go, damn, you're old. Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like it's on both ends of the scale depending on what side you see it from. I'm sure anyone 30 plus will go, don't worry, it's not old. And if you're 20, you'll be like, damn, you're old. Like, because I remember being 20 and being like, damn, 30's old. You know?
So
So
true.
I'm just kind of thinking about, okay, what's next? And it's like, what do I want to do? What are the things I love? Like, I love our profession. I love the profession of
Amen.
entertainment, like it is the best thing ever. We get to meet amazing people and meet amazing things. Like, okay, what skills have I honed during that? Like, my connections are through the roof. I've made so many connections with different people in our industry and outside, I guess. I love talking. As people can tell, I ramble. I love talking. I go on a tangent. I'm a social bunny. It's the thing I miss. And I love teaching and I love helping people. So I was like, okay, I love all those things. That's why I started my podcast. And I was like, okay, if I had a dream to what my profession would be in 15 years time, it would be to do this, to talk and hopefully be able to make and I don't need to be rich from it, but just enough so that I can put all my eggs in that basket to make that like come to life, and do that for my future and be remembered as the guy who genuinely tried helping people. as opposed to like the cool guy or the dope dancer or the guy who did the cool jobs or the dream boy. Like all those kind of things, like, yeah, they're great, but in 10 years time, like no one's going to care about that. I'm not going to care about that. My grandkids won't care about that. But I would like to think that in 10, 15 years time, people go Kane Silver and they'll be like, he was so cool. Like he was really giving and he went out of his way to help people.
And
And
that
like,
is it, isn't it? The giving part. That
yeah.
is what people remember. And as cliche as it sounds, it's how you make people feel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything that you've just said there, Kane, you are literally like an energizer bunny. You have so much, like you're firing on all cylinders. And I think that's what we miss, don't we, as performers? We miss giving.
Yeah.
And we are such, like giving people. And I think, like, I mean, what you're doing is amazing. And you've made so many connections. I mean, you've made 126 plus
Yeah.
episodes. And Kane has your podcast, the Ins and Outs podcast. So how did that come about? Like, what inspired you to start that?
I listened to lots of podcasts anyway on health and fitness. And there was one called Mind Pump, and I loved it. Like,
Was that
it's called Mind Pump podcast. It's a fitness podcast, and it's by like 3 different fitness professionals in America, and they kind of stood for like no BS. Like it's called the raw truth. So they tell the truth. So like when people try and sell supplements and stuff, they're like, no, that's rubbish. Like they're just selling you a ploy. And I was thinking, damn, like I wish we had this for our industry. I wish we had this where people could be like, we get told this is the way things should be. Like if you get a dodgy agent, this is the way things work, or you've got to pay to join this agency, you've got to pay to audition and all these different things. And I was like, damn, like when I was 18 and I saw all these things, I was just like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do anything to get on stage. You want 20 free dancers for a show, for exposure? Yeah, I'll do it. Like, and over the years, you've realized how wrong that is, but no one was really, there was not a voicing these things. So I was like, I want to be that for our industry. I want to be that. And then the more I started doing the podcast, the more I just kind of still had that intention, but it actually has just turned into, I love just talking to people. So although I still have that raw intention of like, I want to filter out the crap and give people knowledge and give people information that they need and inspire people, but also make it entertaining. Like it's a juggle of all things. But now it's actually to a point where I just love talking to people. And if people can relate to someone's story and it inspires them, then that's a win. You know what I mean?
You have quite a natural perception of people, I think, especially one-on-one. And it's so true. From being in the industry myself, I mean, going back to think of, the 18-year-old of us back then, we didn't get that much feedback really, and we didn't know any better. And I think for you to, take on that responsibility and speak to the people and make those opportunities happen and put your voice out there, because obviously as dancers particularly, I know there's actors and singers and people that use their voice obviously in a very different way, but behind the scenes there's so much that goes on that we need help with, obviously. And sometimes I think people are afraid to ask, feel silly, but hopefully the next generation can help from listening to your podcast.
Yeah, like I was really fortunate. Like when I first came into the industry, as we call it, like I was surrounded by people far better than me, far more experienced than me. Not even so much older, but just more ingrained into the entertainment industry, into our dance industry. So I always had people to ask questions. So if there was something I didn't know, I could go to Cisco, like, how does this work? Or I can go to Anthony Kay or Sean Niles, John Graham, like Emma Walsh. I had this amazing connection and I was 20 and they've all been doing it for such a much longer time than me. And not because they're old, but just because they have so much experience. And I was like, wow, without that, I never would have understood anything. And I was really fortunate. And then when I'll go and teach at colleges or do workshops places, people ask you questions and you're like, really? Like you generally have no idea how this world works, So I was like, I want to be that guidebook, like that bit of information where people can go, how do I learn about things that I've not experienced yet? Or how do I get other people's perception of it? So I have an idea before I go into that world.
And which person for you out of all the podcasts do you feel has been the most interesting or the most memorable? for you personally and professionally, just having a chat to?
It's really hard because they all, even though like I don't prep anything for my podcast, I don't have any set questions, I don't have anything planned. I just go in like, what'll be will be. Let's see what
Just let
happens.
it flow. Yeah.
Yeah, with no agenda, you know.
Mhm.
And the ones which I get good feedback about and stuff are not always the ones that are my favorite. You know,
Okay.
like the one that means the most to me is like I had Marty Kadelka on. I think it's like episode 88. And when I
Wow.
first ever set out to do my podcast, I sat with my friend Simeon, and I was like, we did a podcast. He was like my fourth one or my fifth one, and it was kind of like my first 10. I think I was just getting people that I trusted and would like help me talk
Mm.
to them, you know, like people that would guide me and like not
Bounce back and
not be like a brick wall talking to you're like you've got
yeah.
to pull from, you
Imagine
know.
that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and if it was rubbish, if I didn't want to use it, they wouldn't be offended because they knew I'm still trying to figure it out. And I sat to him and I said, you know, and he was like, what's the goal? And I was like, I would just love to like have Marty Kadelka, like Brian Freeman, like the people who like I guess a longer ago were untouchable. Like you couldn't contact them, you couldn't talk to them.
That you look up to.
Obviously now we're in this world where you can contact anyone at any time. It's just if they are willing to respond.
Mm.
But like I would love to have spoke to the people that I really idolized, you
Mm.
know. And it was like my dream to have Cisco on there. And even though Cisco's my friend, I was always nervous to have him because it's someone I really looked up to, you know. And then it's like, okay, outside of dance, I'd love to have like Anton Deck. Like that's the dream, you know.
Oh,
Like
wow.
what an interesting like career and story they've had, and I'm sure that we don't know the half of it.
Yeah, and so much fun as well.
Yeah, so like those kind of things. But for me, like speaking to Marty Kadelka was the dream come true because I became a dancer because I wanted to be Justin Timberlake, and well, he's Justin's
Here you are.
choreographer, so it doesn't get closer. So that one for me is my favorite because it meant the most.
Yeah. So going back to, looking at your past as a dancer, I know you still dance now, obviously. Well, as we say in 2020,
Yeah,
what we can.
in my living room.
Yeah. I just do it in my bedroom all the time, just for the feeling. What advice would you give to, the generation now listening as a dancer to, like the things that you say to yourself? Like, let me rephrase that. So for me, I remember taking everything on board and taking it so personally, like to heart, and the rejection in the business, and it makes you question yourself, I think. So now, obviously, like 10 years later, I look at it and I'm such a different person, obviously, but you kind of wish you'd known that and then taken it back. So for the Kane, the dancer, obviously, that you are today, what would you say to, the dancers out there now that are trying to make it and trying to work with, Justin Timberlake, Brian Friedman, Cisco?
I would say, remember you're a human first. You know, like for me personally, I remember dance being, I was consumed with it. It was all I cared about. Like I didn't care about, no, I didn't care. That sounds really bad, but like my family wasn't a priority. Like my friendships weren't a priority. I was like, I just want to train. I want to book jobs. I'll move wherever the jobs go. I need to achieve these goals because all the time coming up, I was told you're not going to make it. You know, like it's a hard life. It's a really hard career. You're not made for it. Like it's not going to work. So I was so focused on making sure that no matter what happened, I achieved my goals, that I feel like I lost all the other important things in life, you know, like all the other things that we take for granted. And if I guess you're not a dancer and maybe you work a 9 to 5 and your whole life is about spending time with your loved ones, like you won't understand that. But for me, like I lost so many years of spending time with like my brothers and like seeing my cousins grow up and things like that, that now as a 30-year-old, I wish I'd invested more time in me as a human, because I'm a human far longer and far more than I am a dancer.
So true. And that really grounds you as well and puts, what is most important to you.
Yeah.
And when you do reflect, I can completely relate, because there's certain jobs and, things that you want, and that's all you can think about it. It's all consuming, especially when you're in London. Everything is such a fast pace and you're hungry for it.
Yeah.
And I think now, obviously, I mean, I'm 31, I'm with you on the 30 track. You realize that when you step into that room, it's not just about the job.
Yeah.
Even though it feels that at the time, like when you're
I remember having this like misconception that like when I book a big job, my life's going to change. I
Yeah.
remember being like
Outside of yourself.
yeah, my first like dream, like my dream job was just to do a job, you know,
Mm.
like when you first start. And then once I started working, I was like, I want to do Alexandra Burke Bad Boys. Like I need to be a
I
bad
love
boy.
that video.
And then I did her promo stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. Like that
Wow.
was dope. But then once it's finished, it's finished. And like I go home and I go to sleep and I'm like, that was cool. And I wake up and nothing has changed in my life. I've
Mm.
got an extra like £400 in my bank account. Cool. Like it's not life changing and nothing changed. And I always remember, although they were amazing, then I'd be like, the next thing, X Factor. The next thing, move to LA. The next thing, a big job in LA. The next thing, a commercial in LA. Like, you know, there was always chasing this thing. And I remember traveling with Nicole we went to the Philippines and we went to Malta. And for me, that was like the dream job at the time.
Is
It was
that
amazing for Nicole
Nicole?
Scherzinger.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I remember being like, this is the best thing ever. Like I've just traveled with like an artist that I really respect. Not even the
Yeah.
fact that she's popular, but it's someone that you respect. You respect your colleagues. Like it's amazing. And I remember the next day it finished and being like, what now?
What's
You
next?
know, and what's next? And there's something like kind of unfulfilling about it. And I don't mean to put like a negative spin on it because it is phenomenal. And when you're in the moment, it's the best experience ever. But it never changed me as a human. And I feel like I always had this misconception that once I book this dream job, my world's going to change. And like, I don't know, it didn't, you
Mm.
know, I was still Kane from Cardiff, whose parents are still in Wales that I still never see. And I still miss them, you know, like those things still never changed. And that was something which I would never kind of really understood.
Mm. I think it is great for our egos, right? The job,
Mm-hmm.
when you book an amazing job, but then you are right when you stop and then you're back at home, you know, eating whatever it is, no mince pie because it's nearly Christmas. You are always chasing. You're like, oh, I want that feeling again.
Yeah.
And the roller coasters of our industry, we have the highest of highs, but also the lowest of lows when you're not
Yeah.
working. And I think that's a real hard part and a tough lesson to learn in the industry, no matter who you are, no matter how much success or not that has come about yet, your path always changes, but it just makes you realize, okay, there's something so much more to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think not only just performers, but people, you know, in normal walks of life also are feeling kind of lost, you
Yeah.
know? And you, no matter what age you are, you know, every decade, I think it will hit like next for us, 40. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Will be
Don't
like,
say it.
what do we want? You know, what do we want next? And obviously our perspectives and our priorities do change naturally. But you're so right, when putting yourself as a human being first, I think that changes everything, because when you show up in that audition room, they can feel you, like they can pick up on your energy, and you are so relaxed, Kane, like you're so chatty. I don't think we've ever worked together, but I just know you from obviously auditions and class and just
I'm just the loud,
being
stupid
around.
person everywhere I go. I know.
Yeah, you're just there. And I know of you obviously. But yeah, I do think that you are amazing for creating a platform for dancers.
As are you.
Have that. Well, I'm just starting off, like I'm going to be asking you
Yeah, but
loads of
that's how it
questions.
begins, right? Like, I when I first started it, like I would say I was one of the first people to kind of start a podcast in the UK in our thing, and then a few more started popping up here and there, and people would do it like maybe a few episodes or like a different variation of it, and I'd have people like not lots of people, but you know what people are like going, did you see someone else has started a podcast? As if like I'd be like, no, it's only mine, like, and I'm like, dope, and they're like, that's okay, you don't care about that, and I'm like, no, like the more the better. That means
Yeah,
we're going to help each other.
because
That
you're all
means we've got, yeah,
connected
that means
dots.
we can help
Yeah.
each other build each other. And we all, like, your audience becomes my audience and mine becomes yours. Like, the whole reason I started this was to help people, not to be
Mm.
selfish and keep everything for myself. So if it's inspiring people, if it is or if it isn't, I don't know, but to do their own, like, dope. That means there's more of us. That means there's more of a community and we can help each other, right? Like, that's how we're going to succeed.
And that's my intention as well, to help others.
Yeah.
With this podcast, when a healer lady was asking me, because I do a lot of healing on the side, obviously with people in the industry, and I just want to help more people. And she was like, Kim, what's your intention behind this, you know, starting this? And I was like, I just want to help others. like in the arts? Because right now, obviously, we are not stuck, because obviously we're, you know, probably realizing things about ourselves that we need to, you know, to actually grow even more. And you're so right in terms of elevating up and lifting other people up. On a personal note, Kane, how do you lift yourself up, you know, when you don't feel like it, and you know that you have to put yourself out there, and whether it's for a class, for an audition, for a job, or even for a podcast, everyday life, how do you like dig deep and find that motivation within?
I find it really, I'm an extremist. So if I do something, I do it, and I do it to the point where like my limbs are gonna fall off, you know, like I'm very extreme. But the older I'm getting, the less extreme I'm getting, and I'm beginning to find balance. And it's the first time the past few years where I get to that thing where I have that, oh, I can't be bothered today. And then whenever I used to have that younger, I'd always be like, that's not what's going to make you successful. Change your attitude, like pull your finger out and get on it. You know, I'd force myself. Whereas now I'm kind of like, again, I'm putting the human side of me first as opposed to the creative. And I go, do you know what? If you're mentally battered today and you had 8 things to do, like you don't need to do all 8. Like if you do 4, that's better than none. Or if you do 1, that's better than none. Like the last lockdown, I said it on one of my podcasts the other week, and I'm sure it'll upset people, but you know, I don't care. Because I'm here to help, and it's just honest. Like lots of people were posting like, don't feel peer pressured into taking a class online, or don't feel peer pressured into exercising. Like it's okay to do nothing. And I'm like, it is okay to do nothing. Of course it is. But when you think of like, you don't want to do something that you have to do, or you don't feel motivated, how are you looking at the thing that you need to accomplish? What are you looking at it like? Are you looking at it like, if I'm going to exercise today, I have to do an hour. I can't be bothered doing an hour. So that doesn't mean don't do it at all. You know, for me, that just means walk around the block, like do 5 minutes. Like today I needed a choreograph, and I needed to do this podcast. I needed to clean, and I needed to do a workout. I was like, okay, choreograph, I'm going to do just a few 8s instead of the whole number, because I probably won't need the whole number tomorrow anyway. My workout, I'm not going to go outside in the cold and put my rings up. Every half hour for the past 2 hours, I've done 25 push-ups. You know, like just a way of managing stuff so it doesn't feel like this overload of things that I can't be bothered to do. And if you just can kind of trick yourself into making it feel like it's not the workload that it really is.
And you're doing something.
And
like
then
something.
once you've done a little bit, you feel like, oh, I may as well carry on now. And it doesn't feel like such a bad thing.
Yeah. And I think it depends how you read that, because different people will take different things from it. So when you were saying that to me, in my mind, I just hear surrender. There's a certain amount that obviously you can do, and then there's also a certain amount that is like out of your hands. So I completely get that. I feel guilty if I don't do anything. There's different things, obviously, you know, for different people, but I think once you get started and just do 3 things, like even top 1 out of the day, just do 1 thing, because it's how you feel at the end of the day, isn't it? When you get back into bed and you're like, how do I feel? You know?
When you go to bed, then for me, if I've surrendered and I've not done my day that I needed to do, or not done anything, then I lay in bed with like this, I should have just did something, you know? And then it's like, that is more effort and stress for my brain than it would have been just doing it.
Yeah.
You know, do you know what I mean? So if I just cracked on, at least then I go to bed and go, well done, Ginge. Like, you know what I mean? Like you overcome it. There's a great book by a bloke called Aubrey Marcus, and I think it's called Own a Day, Own Your Life. And it changed the game for me. It was like, if you think of doing all the things that you don't like doing, so say you've got your to-do list. He's like, just put the worst ones first, and then your day gets easier. And if you always prolong the things that you don't really want to do, like I wanted to play Call of Duty on my phone today, like, you know what I mean? So I could have done that as the first thing, like, because I'm not like a computer person, but I just wanted 10 minutes, and I was like, but instead of doing that first, let me do my push-ups, let me have a little tidy up, let me wipe the kitchen down, let me choreograph an 8, do this, and I'm going to play Call of Duty after this. Like, you know, like, just
you create your own destiny, obviously, as cliche as it sounds, but you do. And everything you do is a stepping stone to like what is going to come. But yeah, you're right. It's the attitude to it. And obviously you say you are an extremist, so I can imagine you not doing anything. Like,
No,
I
it
think
doesn't
that would
exist.
be
There's
out
not
of
an
your
off day.
nature.
Like
Yeah.
that's been the hardest thing about lockdown is not having much to do.
Mm.
You know, like, so if like so I started coloring, and the next thing I know, I've colored like 4 pictures in like 3 hours, and they're awful. But I was just like, just doing it so dramatically, like, you know, just need to do stuff. And Georgia will be like, my fiance, she's like, should we cook some food? I'm like, not till I finish my coloring. Like, you know, so being an extremist is quite frustrating, but at the same time, it's beneficial when it needs to be.
So looking forward now, I know you were saying like you were looking forward to like 5 years or 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
What, how do you see yourself? Like, how do you vision Kane Silver, not only for what other people will hopefully say about you,
Mm-hmm.
like good or bad, who knows? How do you see Kane in the future? What is next for you? Like, what do you want for you?
I mean, what I would love in an ideal world is for us all to go back to a normal lifestyle, of course, but just to be in a position where I can really help people, you know. And I feel like I already am in a position. I'm just maybe not helping as many people as I'd like to, but
Not yet. You
no,
will.
not yet. I will. No, I've
It's
got no
coming.
doubt about that. That it won't happen, but it's just when it'll happen for me. Like, I know there will be a point. Like, I would love to do, like, I've done one, but I would love to do like podcasts in like a theater, and like have like 5 incredible guests and us all talk on stage and have an audience, or like,
Mm.
you know, or go to like a college where a whole college sits in a thing and you speak to like their principals, and, you know, you give people an insight into the people who they're learning from, because they would never have the courage to ask their principals about their career or their journey, you know, like just things like that. And, you know, if I could pay my bills from doing that, then it's a win. You know, I have this thing, I've never really done anything that I don't love.
Yeah,
And
life's too short.
I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse. Like, you know, some people will be like, "Well, you've never worked a real job." And I'm like, well, I have. I've done a few, but I always manage to quit after like a day, because I'm like, this ain't for me. Like, I'll
Don't
put
worry,
all my,
I'm with you there.
yeah, I'll put all my eggs in another basket. Like this lockdown, I started part-time driving, because, you know,
Part-time
30 and
driving.
yeah, like delivering food. Yeah, well, normally it's full-time driving to gigs, but
Oh, I see.
delivering
Okay.
food.
That went different in my head.
Yeah, sorry, delivering food. And I was like, it was at first like a proper ego kill. You know, I was like, damn, I'm 10 years deep in this industry. I never thought I'd have to do this. And then I was like, no, like the bigger picture. Like, you've got a
Yeah.
mortgage to pay. You've got a life to build. Like,
And it's quite humbling, right?
going, yeah, super humbling. And
Yeah.
it's also made me really grateful going and earning that £10 an hour, thinking, I've only earned 15 quid and I've been here an hour and a half. Oh my goodness. Like, that was so humbling and made me so grateful for the teaching opportunities I get and the performing opportunities I get, and to
Mm.
do the things I actually love, you know?
Yeah. And to help others in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And you
So
never know who you're going to meet along the way as well, you know?
exactly. So to be in a position of, I guess, not influence, but just to help people and be able to make a living from it, like, that would be amazing.
I'm sure you will, Kane. Like, I have no doubt in my mind, because you are, I just see fire with you. You know how like you can see people and you feel their energy. Like, even now, even though I'm not in the room with you, you honestly have light and you will attract that back. And
Yeah.
I wish you all the luck with your podcast and becoming even more like supernova, well known globally.
I'm right back at you.
Oh,
100%. We're in this together. I'll
yes,
share yours,
yes,
and
yes, yes.
we'll
Share
build.
your
We've got to build
heart.
our own community, you know?
Yeah, and it's there. And I mean, you
Yeah.
started it, and yeah, you
Wow.
inspired me for sure.
People
So
inspired me.
where can we find you? Is it at Mr. Ball Change on Instagram?
Yeah.
And
So my personal Instagram is at Mr. Bull Change. I
hmm
know,
do you like
incredible.
tap?
No.
Oh
Well,
right,
no. I
okay.
I love tap dancing.
Yeah,
I
that,
just
that
I
Mr.
just
Ball Change. That
yeah, but
sounds
I
okay.
can't tap dance.
Okay. Well, it's in modern and jazz as well. Yeah, I
Yeah.
fluke tap
Well,
as well.
I like it because, like, again, I love Marty Kudelka, and if you watch any of his combos, you'll always find there's like a bull change with like a double bounce, and I used to just be like, oh, it's the best step ever. So Mr. Bull Change, it
Oh,
just fitted. And Leanne LeMay always used to take the mick out of me. She'd be like, oh, Kane's here, and she'd do like a bull change.
cool.
And this was like before Instagram was around, so I was like, Mr. Bull Change just sounds right.
Yeah.
And then the podcast one is the Ins and Outs podcast. But to find all podcast or me, just go to theinsandoutspodcast.com.
Yes.
I think, you know, like,
Yeah, I
I
listened
think.
to you earlier. I listened to
Yeah.
your latest one, your 126th episode with
Mukta?
De Soleil. Yeah,
He's very
so
cool guy.
good. I haven't listened to everyone, but it's quite amazing to see the scope of the amount of people that you've spoken to and to
Yeah.
just share that knowledge and obviously learn so much more yourself, because then the more you know, obviously the more you can give and share with not just the younger generation, but people our age as well, because
Yeah.
never
Like,
stop learning, kids.
yeah, I actually get surprised sometimes, like, because it's weird. I don't have like a huge Instagram following or loads of people like message me about it and stuff. So I kind of just be like, well, it's out there, and if people listen, they listen. I really try not to look at the numbers of how many people listened on like the integrations, because at one point I remember that getting into my head and being like, that
Mm.
episode didn't get as much as that one, and I was always being like, that's not why you started this. Like, stop worrying about the numbers, and just worry about putting out good content, and whoever looks at it, like, if they win, if they benefit from it, it's a win, right?
Yeah,
And I
if it
remember,
helps one person, that's
uh,
changed their day. So
yeah, and I remember being at base a few weeks ago before lockdown 2.0, and someone went, Kane from the ins and outs, and I was like, sorry, I was so scared. I was a bit of like I'd done
sorry,
something
that's not
wrong.
me.
I was like, oh, I'm sorry. What did I
That's so
say?
cool.
It was, but I was like, oh, hi. And it's weird because then people have like spoke to me because they obviously probably feel like they know me because I talk so much nonsense. But as you're like, and they're saying hello to me like you have a relationship, and I'm like, I have no idea who you are. This is terrifying. But it
So
was
cool
flattering
though.
at the same time.
Yeah, I'm sure there's so much more to come. And good luck with channeling your energy and focusing it on just one thing or like three things out your day.
Yeah,
And I'm sure it will bring a lot more success in everything that you're after, not just home life, but obviously above and beyond. So yeah,
amazing.
thank you so much for your time, Kane.
No worries. Thank you. It's been
Thank
a
you so much. And
pleasure.
definitely check out the Ins and Outs podcast with Kane Silver. I'm sure there will be people on there that you'll love to listen to, obviously, as well as Kane.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.